Hello and welcome back to the highlights from the Tennent's Men's Premiership and National Leagues. We've got round 11 coming up in the Tennent's Men's National 1 later on with a huge clash at the top of the table. But first we are looking at Derby Week Take 2 in round 12 of the Tennent's Men's Premiership. Starting off at Rayburn Place, where Edinburgh Accies hosted Currie Chieftains. Currie came out on top in this tie last week as both sides are looking to fight it out for the last home playoff spot.
Much like last week, Accies started out the stronger of the two. However, instead of scoring a penalty, much like the previous game, they went one step further and managed to score a try for Rugby Kent. Currie's strong men went to work next, and Ewan Stewart managed to get their first try of the game moments later. Christian Townsend managed to find the conversion successfully to give Chieftains a 7-5 lead, and they extended that lead just before half time when Mike Vernal went over. A second successful conversion from Townsend saw Chieftains with a 14-5 lead at half-time. However, Edinburgh Accies would start off the second half stronger, and Max Wallace went over for their first try of the half. With Looms scoring a successful conversion, it was 14-12 to the visitors. However, Mike Vernal changed that with his second try of the game. Another successful conversion from Townsend meant it was 21-12. But with Jamie Looms scoring this penalty moments later, the score was reduced to just 6 points, meaning a converted try for the home side would give them the victory. They managed to find that try in the last play of the game when Lewis Wells went over in the corner, meaning it was just down to the boot of Jamie Looms to see if they could get the victory. The kick was successful and Accies walked away just winning by a point.
Well, a big win there for Edinburgh Accies and a dramatic finish at the end of the game. Across town, Heriot's Blues were looking to climb away from the relegation threat as they took on Mar at Golden Acre, who just pipped them by 2 points last week.
It only took 4 minutes for Heriots to open the scoring when Paul Christie raced onto a Ross James pass and broke the final tackle to finish in style. It didn't take long, however, for Mar to get on the score sheet, with a fantastic solo effort from Scott Bickerstaff, leaving Colin Sturgeon with the easiest of conversions to level the score. Heriots, however, were quick to respond, and Craig Robertson scored to get his 13th try of the season, still leaving him as a top scorer so far. Blair Jardine, however, was there for Mar to get their second try of the game, but with Colin Sturgeon missing his conversion, the score was left just 2 points in Heriots' favour. And Heriots extended that lead to 9 points going into half-time when Struan Cessford went over. Marr, however, would prove dominant in the second half as Craig Miller went over to decrease the gap. Fraser Grant turned and powered his way over the line moments later to give Marr the lead. And the tries just kept on coming in a powerful second half for the champions. This time it was Ali Rogers who emerged from a heap of bodies to claim the touchdown after a powerful drive. Sturgeon as well would keep on kicking, this time scoring a penalty, with his final points tally for the day coming to 13. But it wasn't his side who would score next. Callum Anderson would find the bonus point for Heriots as he powered his way over the line. But Marr would make sure that they would get the win when Jack Scott finished off a slick handling mood from both Sturgeon and Bickerstaff. But even though that Heriots went over last when Cessford went over and Wilson converting, it would be the Ayrshire team that would walk away with all the points in a convincing second half performance.
We're going across the M8 now and back to a Glasgow derby where last week Glasgow Hawks just fell short against GHA. This time the two sides met at Braidholme.
In a typically heated Glasgow derby, it would be Max Crumlish who would go over to give the visitors the early lead. Of course, it wouldn't be a Premiership highlights show nowadays without saying these words. Chris Hyde successfully converted this penalty to get his team on the score sheet. And Archie Falconer would then add to that with this try to give GHA the lead.
Advantage jumping across. You're playing with advantage line.
But Ryan Sweeney was on hand to give Hawks the lead back as he barged his way through the GHA defence to score.
Hands behind. Short, leave two. Leave it. Ball's there. Go right now. Hold in. Whoa.
And they would extend their lead as they scored their first try of the second half when Ross Darrick went over in the left corner.
Use it. Hands behind. Short. No hands. Ball's there. I'll give you space. Use. Short.
GHA, however, looked to get back onto the score sheet, and Chris Hyde managed to latch onto Fergus Johnston's pass to cut through the Hawks' defence to score.
Turnover was fine and then he lost it.
But Hawks made sure of the win as they scored their fourth try, once again through Ryan Sweeney. Gavin Cruikshanks as well managed to score this penalty from long range, clipping the post on the way in. But GHA would have the last laugh as Charlie Lonergan managed to clutch on to a missed pass from Gavin Cruikshanks. Despite this, however, GHA could not find any more points, and Glasgow Hawks walked away with the win, getting revenge from last week.
Well, coming back now along the East Coast, and it wasn't the result for Musselburgh last week, who lost by 55 points to 5 against top of the table Hawick. What would the result be when the bottom side met the top side once again, this time at Stony Hill?
The home side managed to find the perfect start as Jamie Campbell went over on his debut for the hosts. The bottom side extended their lead as well when Danny Onsen kicked this penalty. Hawick, however, were there to respond when Kirk Ford scored a penalty himself. Musselburgh responded back to this with another penalty. However, with Danny Onsen in the bin, it was down to Paul Cunningham to score. Hawick, however, eventually closed the gap as Andrew Mitchell went over, bursting his way through the Musselburgh defence. However, Ford could not find the conversion and Musselburgh led by a point at half-time. Ford, however, was able to find his kicking boots into the second half when he scored this penalty to take the lead. They were able, however, to break through the Musselburgh defence one last time when Lewis Ferguson went over in the far corner. Despite this, Danny Onsen managed to kick one last penalty to rescue a losing bonus point for Musselburgh. A close result for both teams in what was a close encounter.
We're looking now to our final game in the Borders, where Selkirk looked to solidify 4th place as they took on Jed Forest at Riverside Park.
In a tight Borders encounter, it would be Selkirk that would open the scoring, when Lachlan Ferguson managed to get his way through the defence before delivering the inside scoring pass to Jack Hamilton.
Nine, come here.
However, Jed's response was imminent, and as they got the ball out to Lewis Young, his hold-up play was excellent to allow Robbie Shira Gibb to go over in the corner. Young was involved again as the home side took the lead, this time offloading to Mason Cullen, who ran in the second try. Finlay Scott successfully converted to give them a 14-5 lead.
Penalty only. That's good.
Craig Jackson brought the score to within just 2 with this penalty kick. Before Alan Ferry burst through the Jed defence to give the away side the lead before half-time. Both sides were reduced to 14 men early in the second half, and with the resulting penalty, Selkirk chose to go for the corner, and Alan Ferry surged his way over the line for his second try of the match.
Penalty advantage.
Selkirk would have another man sent off through Callum Anderson, and Jed made the 14 versus 13 advantage count when Gary Young managed to score for a 5-metre scrum. Scott's conversion reduced the lead to just 3 points. However, Jackson would score once again from the penalty spot, following up with another kick from the penalty spot to add an extra 6 points for the visitors and to walk away with a 28-19 victory. And so this is how the Premiership table looks now after round 12. Hawick's still at top on 52 points, Currie Chieftains only behind them by 4. However, Accies now close the gap on second place. Selkirk also now keep a 6-point gap ahead of Glasgow Hawks. The only other change is that Heriots Blues now jump into 8th ahead of Jed Forest thanks to their bonus point. Musselburgh's bonus point only now means that they are 8 points behind Jed Forest. In the Premiership next week, the big clash is between 1st and 3rd at Mansfield Park as Hawick take on Edinburgh Accies. Elsewhere, it's an Edinburgh derby to look forward to as Currie Chieftains host Heriots Blues. Musselburgh will be looking to close the gap on Jed Forest as they host Selkirk, while their rivals are away to Glasgow Hawks. And finally, Mar hosts GHA at Fullerton.
To Tennent's men's National 1 now, and it's a huge clash at the top of the table. Ayr last week continued their solid form after beating Gala at Millbrae. They were back at home once again as they took on league leaders Kelso.
The home side started off stronger, and Jamie Bova went over and converted his own kick within 3 minutes to give them a 7-0 lead over the league leaders. Kelso responded about 7 minutes later as they wrestled their way over the line but could not find the conversion to make it only 2 points in it. With Kelso down to 14 men, Scott Watson made the numerical advantage count as he went over to extend the hosts' lead. And the scoring didn't stop in the first half as they took a 21-5 lead, this time through Cameron Rees, with Bova getting his 3rd conversion of the day. But Kelso would dominate the second half as Ayr failed to get on the score sheet. They managed to get a penalty try 56 minutes in. They then narrowed the gap to 21-19 on the 62-minute mark. And with this penalty kick, they managed to nudge ahead by just a point. And that would be all they would need to take away all 4 points, robbing Ayr of what would have been a fantastic victory and keeping their title hopes alive. In the other results in Tennent's men's National 1, it was a fantastic result for Dundee as they managed to overcome GHK at Mayfield. Biggar travelled back down the A90 with all 5 points as they put 50 past Aberdeen Grammar. Stuart Melville's worries continue as they fall to another loss, this time at Bridgehaugh against Stirling County. And in an emotional weekend for the club following the passing of the great Doddy Weir, Melrose managed to put 63 points past Gala as they now go second in the table. And so, as mentioned, Melrose are now second in the table, only 3 points behind Kelso and now 1 point ahead of Ayr. Gala now as well find themselves 8 points off third place. At the bottom of the table as well, Steers Melville now find themselves 3 points behind Aberdeen and 4 points behind Watsonians, and they both have a game in hand. They are also now 10 points off safety behind GHK. They will have a look to close the gap on GHA as they travel through next week to play them. Elsewhere, Melrose take on Stirling County and Watsonians have got to face Gala. Dundee Rugby host Biggar, Ayr will look to get back to winning ways against Highland, and Kelso are away to Aberdeen Grammar. It was the return of Tennent's men's national 2 this week as Preston Lodge fell by heavy points to Berwick despite putting 26 points past the hosts. Boroughmuir vs Kirkcaldy was abandoned due to an injury and will be rescheduled to a later date. Falkirk also proved their dominance as they put 75 points past Cartha. It was a tight game between Glasgow Accies and Dumfries Saints with just 6 points in it, and Newton Stewart put more misery on Hamilton Bulls as they put 30 points past them. Last week Peebles also finished 13-7 in favour of the hosts. Looking at the table then, and Glasgow Accies still remain at the top of the table, however Falkirk are only a point behind them. Peebles are also only 2 points, and Newton Stewart move up into 4th. As previously mentioned as well, Hamilton Bulls are now finding themselves off the pace as they are now 13 points behind Dumfries Saints. Cartha Queen's Park are at home to Lasswade while Dumfries Saints host Boroughmuir. Newton Stewart take on Berwick with Peebles hosting bottom placed Hamilton Bulls. Elsewhere Kirkcaldy take on Falkirk and Preston Lodge are at home to top of the table Glasgow Accies. And so now looking at Tennent's men's National 3 where Gordonians kept the pace at the top of the table with an 83-14 win over Orkney. Royal High were unable to field the team, so the match went uncontested. Muddyfield Wanderers also got a fantastic win over Perthshire, very close by just a point. And it was a tough game for Howe Fife as they overcame Allen Glens. Strathmore also getting a huge win over Greenock Wanderers. Unfortunately for West of Scotland, their match against Whitecraigs was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. Which means now that the gap between them and Gordonians at the top of the table is 6, albeit they have a game in hand. Halehead Jordan Hill also behind by 10 points. Howe Fife now catching up to them and are only just a point within it, now level as well with their opponent Allen Glens. Royal High are now 10 points off 11th place Greenock. And so next week's fixtures look like this. It's a big game for Greenock Wanderers as they take on Allen Glens, while Hillhead Jordan Hill face Strathmore. Murrayfield Wanderers look to keep their winning streak going as they take on Royal High, while Orkney will look to get back to winning ways against Perthshire. Howe Fife will also take on Whitecraigs, and most importantly, it's the battle between the top two as West of Scotland host Gordonians.
And so that is it for another weekend of Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League action. We are starting to get to the business end in the Tennent's Men's Premiership, and we're almost halfway there in the Tennent's Men's National Leagues. What will happen as we go into the Christmas season? Well, join us next week where we'll be rounding up all the action from round 12 and 13. We'll see you then.